Okay guys, welcome back to D-Tech. Tonight I wanted to show you this quick little diag that I believe I've got figured out. It's a 2016 BMW 750 and the customer's complaint is that while driving in drive, as far as the shifter goes, it will randomly put itself into manual shifting mode without one actually moving the shift lever down in the center console. And so what it does, it puts itself into manual sport mode as if you were wanting to manually shift it with either the paddles or the center console shift lever. But it'll do that without you ever moving the actual shifter down in the console to get it into that manual mode. And so it'll display on the cluster in the dash that it's in M1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever. And if you try to paddle to shift upwards, because sometimes it puts you in a gear that's lower than the speed you're going, and so the RPMs start to shoot up. And you can't shift it or anything. So what you have to do is go to manual and then back to drive, and you'll see it change in the cluster. It'll go back to regular D for drive. Now it can be pretty annoying, and it's just random. It can go a day or two without anything, or it'll do it every 2 seconds as you're driving. So naturally, I ended up scanning it, and we do have some relevant trouble codes, which we have here. Now, clearly, as you can tell, we've got shift paddle short circuit to ground, another shift paddle continuous, shift paddle multiple operation. So I think that it's trying to tell you that maybe 2 requests are attempting to be made, and it can see that. This one is clearly the CAS is pointing as if the circuit form is shorted to ground. And so I believe because of that is why we are having this weird shifting problem. Again, so it'll put you into that manual mode without one physically ever going this way, and the display down there changes. So based off of that, I removed the airbag. I wanted to inspect the harness. Now the paddles are here in the back, so there's one for the up shift and this one's for the downshift, and they are part of this green wire circuit, as you can tell. So it'll go to this left shifter, so there's the green that goes to that blue connector, and then it comes over across the green to that blue connector back to the paddles. So the circuit is the green and black, so there's the black, and then there's a black wire in there, and that's the circuit that's involved. There's the same green wire. It goes to a small little module here, but it comes through the vehicle, or goes to the rest of the vehicle through this connector here, and that is what most of us would know as the clock spring or steering column module, and that's the pass-through. And so what I just decided to do based off the trouble code, and I'll show you here. So we've got it plugged back into the clock spring. And so what I've done is I've got my meter. It's an ohm with the audible beep. And then I've got my DLC connector on the DLC. Now, I do have the battery unplugged, so this isn't powered up or anything, and we're going to be checking, basically attempting to check continuity to ground on that green line. Another thing to point out, this report here actually is after clearing the complete vehicle's memory, and it cannot get rid of those shift paddle circuit codes. So we've got hard fault codes. We've got the vehicle shifting into manual, and now we're going to check for continuity. So just to show you, all right, so so my black is down at the ground pin there, and just to show you, all right, so that means that you know, obviously with the battery unplugged, we are still tied into the ground circuit over here, or we can tap into the ground circuit as we're showing there. So if we go into the green wire, that kind of confirms our trouble code. And so next, because you want to try to differentiate and not make an expensive call with either the clock spring or something past there, I want to test basically just the steering wheel harness. Alright, forgive the noise, but I'm just showing you. I am in that green wire. It's removed from the clock spring, and we have continuity, obviously. Now, alright guys, so just a little breakdown, because I was getting a little bit confused. First foremost, because the wiring diagrams doesn't really specify too much, but with a little bit of sitting down, analyzing, looking at this, going back and forth, looks like I've kind of got an idea of the breakdown, specifically with that green line and the paddles. So initially, I was thinking that the green line was an issue and was shorted somewhere in the steering wheel harness here, but realistically, it is the ground side for the circuit. So if you look here, there is the green line, and it grounds out right there on the frame towards the bottom. And then, so that green line circuit is the ground side, which means that the black wire that goes to the paddles over here is has to be a power side. So these are basically, looks like just switch that'll close a contact and then send the signal from the black down to the ground, which it has to, because the green is always grounded to the, let's call it, frame of the steering wheel. And so our problem can't be on this green side of the steering wheel harness, and I am going to doubt that it's on the black side due to the fact that everything was unplugged related with the black, and so I just doubt that it's going to be in the steering wheel harness. And just a quick breakdown also, there's a lot going on with the steering wheel. So you've got a little module here for the buttons on the left, another one here for the, and then another one here on the right side. And then with that, we've got this little module here on the left, and another one there on the right. Along with, we've got a harness coming here, and then a second harness coming in there. So these, I believe, they're little modules, but I think also the little small motors that will vibrate the steering wheel for the basically the lane keep assist. And if you see, we've got I'll call it the bigger fat wires, the only big fat wires in the whole steering wheel section, and they go to the left, to the right and left in those little modules. So this has two motors, one for each side, and it's connected with that big fat brown and purple. And then the red is basically a single wire bus that will go to these other modules, and that's how it's communicating with what's going on here in the steering wheel. Now the other thing, these two harnesses, one of them is going to be for your steering wheel heat, and the other one, and I don't know which one it was, based off wine color, the other one is going to be for basically for a touch of the wheel. I guess it needs to see you grabbing the steering wheel. And so along with the two paddles, the airbag and horn, we've got those motor module, steering wheel heat, and then the touch sensor, all in the steering wheel. Alright guys, so what I've decided to do is to monitor the power supply side. So obviously, clearly I've got the airbag removed. I'm not worried about that right now. I've got the scope hooked up to the black pin there, which again seems to be our power supply signal deal for the paddles. I've got my scanner connected, my ground there for my scope. Let's see. There we go. Let's start off with scanning. Okay, let's do a complete system scan. And while that's doing that, I just wanted to show you that we are already at some voltage being supplied. Let's see how much. So right about 5 volts. So looks like it's a 5 volt signal system. But what we want to see is that, I guess, shorted out. And just out of curiosity, so we've got these in permanent. So let's see, short circuit to B plus or line disconnected. So for the moment, we've got a new code because we've got that paddles unplugged. That one switched to intermittent, the shorted one. So let's take a look. Alright, let's turn the wheel, hopefully not lose my connector. Oh, look. Alright, so I think we're getting something. I just have to make sure it's not our connection. But let me, let's see. Let me get you guys on the screen. So we'll go ahead and pause that. And obviously you see something there, we started at 5 volts, if you remember. So we started, we had a dropout and then another dropout that stayed continuous until this point. It rose back up and then dropped down to continuous. So let's see where we're at now. Let's start over. Okay, we're still down at the bottom. I'm going to keep you guys here on the scope. I'm going to move the steering wheel. So that's to the left. Go more towards the left. Alright, so nothing so far after those first initial. So let me cycle the key. Alright guys, so let's see. I'm going to go ahead and stop. Now I couldn't get it to do it again after the first few initial times. But if you remember, this customer does describe it sometimes being very frequent, and sometimes a day, 2 days, I think maybe even a week, he said, before it even acts up. So there we go, clearly shorted down towards the bottom. We know we should have 5 volts, but we were able to capture it getting shorted. Okay guys, so I think what we're going to end up making the call on is basically the clock spring. It seems that that's probably the most logical area or situation or faulty shorting is occurring. So that is where I am going to make my call. I've done a lot of testing here to try to make sure I call something in the steering wheel or prior to the steering wheel, and I think I've done enough for this situation. One thing that had me curious, we've obviously have 2 paddles. We have 1 ground for both paddles in the green wire, and we have 1 supply in the black wire to both paddles. So again, the black wire comes in and it splits here to this left one, and then it splits there to the right one. And when I was looking at the diagram, kind of intrigued or confused as to how does it know if it's the right or left that you are pressing. If we have 1 feed and 1 ground that's shared. So that's what I have set up right now, and again, this is just to fulfill curiosity because based off the wiring diagram. So I'm gonna hit the left side and let go, and now I'll hit the right side and let go. So if you can tell, that is how it identifies left from right. They must have different resistance, and that's how it's able to separate the two. Alright guys, so I guess the next step is to replace this unit here, and I've already ordered and received a brand new one from from the dealer here, so we're gonna go ahead and remove this one, install the new one. I'm not sure if there's any programming, but if there is, we'll get that done.